Six agenda session to order. Can I have approval on the minutes? Minutes stand without objection. Council, if you will take a look at your agenda this evening, I will slow down a little this week. We have ordinances under final reading. We have legal as well as public works. Any comments or questions, please hit your light. Councilman Ledford.
Madam Chair, this is under information technology, if you'll allow.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Is Tyson in the room? Hey, Tyson. So under, I guess, items D, this one grabbed my eye. Tyson, will you walk us through a little bit how this benefits the Land Development Office? I know we've all been interested in helping bolster Land Development Office, and we're aware of the challenges. So we don't hear enough from IT, so we'd like to see you more.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm always welcome to come up here and help explain. So really, everything from our strategy for the city and for our new website and everything we want to do, obviously post-COVID, is digitize all of our services that we're providing to our residents. This is OpenGov is an application that we brought in around 3 years ago. And it really is the face to our residents and businesses for applying for permits, business licenses, really any sort of those specialized licenses that you would need. So it really helps not only give you a single pane of glass, if you will, into where to get these items, but also where they are in the process. And so it not only helps just give that visibility, but it helps accelerate the time for our LDO office to be able to review and approve said licenses. So it really is a 24/7 LDO office, if you will, for accepting licenses and requests.
So will this help enhance the user experience on the public side in working with LDO? Because I know that can be challenging to navigate at times.
It is, and it's very simple, which is the other mantra and motto that we have around user experience. So it's very straightforward, and yes, it is the public-facing portal for this.
Very good. And this definitely helps out LDO.
It does, and I think that's, one area where, this is an accelerator for them. We want to support them and give them the technology aspects that they need in order to be able to do their job. So this takes a lot of burden off them and really helps accelerate the process for businesses to be able to conduct their work.
Very good. That's all I had. Thanks for
Thank you for
the time. And Madam Chair, I yield.
All right, thank you, Councilman Ledford. Again, ordinances on the final reading. Any other comments or questions? Ordinances on the first reading, we have Mayor's Office, we have a couple of planning, we have a planning item, and item under Public Works. Okay, resolutions, we have Council Office, and we've had some questions for Information Technology. Please hit your light if you have any questions. We also have Public Works and Wastewater. So that's our agenda for this evening. Also, we do have a special presentation. Councilwoman Coonrod will be making a presentation, proclamation honoring Allen Burney Jr. So be on the lookout for that for this evening. Council, if you will take a look at next week's proposed agenda items. If you have any comments or questions, please hit your light. We will have next week a special presentation, proclamation honoring George Provost, and that'll be taken care of by Councilman Hester. All right, I don't see any lights. Purchasing questions, I believe administration had a comment for that. And if there's any questions from council, please hit your lights. Okay.
Thank you, Chairwoman. We do have one purchase that needs to be withdrawn for this evening. It's the first line item on your purchasing sheet for tree removal, storm cleanup, and trimming services. We just need a little bit more time with review for this one. I think we have one slight discrepancy, but this will be coming back to you in the future, but just to remove that from the sheet for this evening.
Okay, that'll work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the city attorney. Are we able to remove that on the fly, given the new TCA, or do we need to remove that and defer it?
I think you should just this evening, just defer it this evening when it comes up. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Councilman Ledford. All right, council, if you will take a look at your future considerations. Any comments or questions? All right. And we do have a departmental report today. We have a purchasing department report, as well as a committee, economic development committee, discussing the One West Side TIF. And so with that, we'll go ahead with our departmental report, purchase department report.
We have 3 slides if you care for slides, otherwise we can just talk. What is your preference?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Let's talk, okay. So first of all, we've reached out to other Tennessee local governments, and they're all seeing the same issues that we are. In fact, Debbie Talley has been invited to participate in a roundtable for the conversation. We've got a few reasons why we're having trouble, and we have some things that we're doing to address the issues. So, first of all, we have inflationary pressures. They're creating price uncertainties for multiple year contracts. So if I'm locking in prices for 4 years, as the supplier, I'm going to be hesitant of what that's going to do to me. You know, so we have, with the inflation, it's really difficult. We're going to get them in time. With the longer process for governments, it makes suppliers more concerned about losing margins. By the time they start the process, get the bid, prices could have changed considerably. And this is really true with some of the more complicated projects. Another issue, another problem we're having is our projects, although they seem large to us, are small in comparison to some of the large private dollar contracts that are out there. So it's harder to get interest. And then the last one that we identified is our payment on time rate is not what it used to be. It's improving, but some suppliers are really frustrated when they don't get paid within the 30 days. Now, I want to let you know this is improving. As of August, 80% of our payments were within 30 days. This is up from 66% last year. So we are working and improving. So what are we doing? In 2022, we started a new supplier portal. This really will streamline the process from participating in bids to the point of getting your payment. You can watch it all the way through. It's slow adoption, though. Only 22% of the invoices that were processed from April to June were through the supplier portal. So we are working to improve that. We have 2 meetings per week for suppliers to get familiar with the portal, to learn to use it well. We are also holding department education sessions to help them understand their part in the procure-to-pay process, and this will eventually help on the delays there. We have 2 supplier fairs each year. In fact, we have one coming up Thursday. This gives an opportunity to reach out to the minority and women business community, and we also continue to make sure that we reach out in every available method with registered suppliers, through the website, through newspapers, to let people know of procurement opportunities. We are beginning to debundle large projects where it makes sense. This gives some relief to some of the insurance and bond requirements, and we're helping them through that process. So that's just an overview of the question about why we're having so much trouble obtaining multiple bids.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vicki. Any comments or questions from the council? Okay, Madam Vice Chair Hill, followed by Councilman Ledford.
Thank you. Vicki, I appreciate you pulling this information together for us.
Sure.
I'm certain you all are frustrated, as are we. I want to make sure I understand some of the work that you're doing to improve the payment in 30-day number. As I was taking notes, you said you're doing department training. Is that internal department training to help people understand why they should complete their work in a timely manner?
True, that is internal. We have a couple of issues. One is making sure that they go into the system and show that they received the goods and services on time. And another is making sure that our AP department actually receives the invoices.
And what does AP stand for?
Accounts payable, sorry.
Oh, to make sure that the
Yes,
invoice
that they
gets
actually
sent
have the
to
invoices
account
to
payable.
pay.
Okay, all right. That seems like low-hanging fruit compared to some of the larger economic issues we're facing.
It does.
Has there been conversation about the pros and cons of multi-year contracts, given that that's one of the challenges?
I don't believe there's been conversation about that, but it's definitely one of the things that we need to look at.
Okay, I mean, I know we're always looking to limit risk for the taxpayer, you know,
And it
lock
creates
into a price.
efficiencies, however.
It does, but knowing that the economy is changing so quickly, it would be interesting to know a year from now, is that even a relevant way to do
Right.
business? Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
All right.
That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vicky, thank you for coming to us and kind of outlining the issues. I know, for example, we've lost some vendors who refuse, because I've talked to them. They're people I know, and they said, I refuse to do business with the city.
Unfortunately.
And they're really good businesses. They're really good vendors for us. But where are we at? When can we see improvement? And when I go to the AP question, is it because of a lack of funds, or is it because of the processing? Because I think we could fix the processing.
We need to work on the process. It is
Okay.
not lack of funds.
Could you come back to us relatively soon and give us another update? Because that sounds like you are working on it. And if there's anybody at the helm for this, I'm glad it's you. Because you've tried to retire like 5 times, and we keep asking you not to. Because we need your expertise in this role. But I would love, Madam Chair, to hear some progress maybe sometime soon. I'll leave that up to you, Vicki, because I don't want
Okay,
to stifle
soon.
your process.
Yeah. We are actively working. We had a meeting this afternoon, trying to figure out how to streamline processes for approvals and to make them more efficient. I mean, we have been working at this. Obviously, the numbers have improved. They're not where we need them to be.
And my last point, if I may, Madam Chair, is, Vicki, this council is very interested and has been in promoting smaller businesses in Chattanooga, minority-owned businesses in Chattanooga, to do business with the city. And when we have a delay in a payment that's expected, I'm a small business owner. You know that, it hurts. That's great. It does hurt, and it could be detrimental to whether someone is open or closed the next day. Are we communicating with folks that are in this void when time, so they're not expecting a check to come in on a Friday and they have all their eggs in a basket, and like, wow, I finally got to do business with the city, and then all of a sudden it's just not there?
I'm sure that when it comes to our small business community, that's something that we need to figure out how to be more proactive in conversations with them.
Please,
Yes.
I beg you, please. Thank you, Madam
Sure.
Chair. And I know you'll do it, Vicki.
All right, thank you so much, Councilman Ledford. All right, Vicki, I don't see any more lights, so you were thorough and
Okay.
swift, as I
Thank you.
love. Thank you so much, Vicki. All right, so with that, we have now our Economic Development Committee chaired by Councilwoman Coonrod. Can we get approval of the minutes?
So moved.
All right, if you will read the resolution, economic development, 7B.
A resolution approving an amendment to the Economic Impact Plan for the development of the North River Commerce Center Industrial Park and the redevelopment of North Access Road.
All right, any questions? Jenny, Ken? All right, well, let's roll into the One West Side Tiff. Man, listen, shots was fired earlier from our chairwoman, so take heed.
I'll wait till we get the presentation up. All right, so it's the other one. All right, thank you, council. Oh, y'all don't see it. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. Thank you, council. So what we wanted to do today was to provide you an update as to where we are in the One West Side TIF, which includes the Bend and West Side Evolves. So I'll just sort of move through here if I can get the thing to work. Oh, okay. There we go. So as a reminder to the council, what we are contemplating here is a public-private partnership which would essentially create a $135 million TIF, including interest, which would be made up of property tax revenue in the amount of approximately $100 million plus incremental new sales tax revenue in the amount of approximately $15 million plus interest capped at $20 million. The real property tax revenue would be used to reimburse Urban Story Ventures, the private developer in this case, for up to 50% of their public infrastructure costs. And then the city would allocate a portion of the new incremental local option sales tax revenue towards the TIF as well. That's the $15 million sales tax number. But there would be a portion of the local option sales tax revenue which would also be dedicated to affordable housing. As you all will remember, part of the TIF process is that there must be an application review committee that gets put together. We held that application review committee meeting on Thursday, September the 7th. Tanisha Irvin and Rebecca Suttles ably represented the City Council. Gordon Parker and Nadia Kane represented the Industrial Development Board, which under the new policies and procedures, the Industrial Development Board has 2 picks. Leslie Gower and Dr. Brian Johnson represented the Office of the Mayor, and Charles Wood represented the Chamber. So the application review committee meeting for this process was larger than TIFs in the past because the new policy expanded the TIF application review committee. The committee recommended that the TIF be moved forward. So it was moved forward to the Industrial Development Board for a public hearing. That public hearing was held on Monday, September the 11th, and the IDB voted to advance the TIF on to the City Council and the County Commission for consideration. So I wanted to give you an overview of where we were, and I'd like to invite our good friends from Urban Story Ventures to pick up the ball and take it from here to tell you more about the project. Thanks, sir. Yep. So, backwards, forwards. Yeah, that's right. Cool.
Good afternoon. Appreciate you taking the time today and appreciate being here. I'll try to go through this very quickly because I know you all are very familiar with the Bend project and we've been here before. So I found this. This was an article I found a couple days ago and I thought it was relevant for today's discussion. If you see the photo here in the top left-hand corner, it's our existing riverfront where the aquarium is housed, and I believe this photo was taken in late 70s, early 80s. It looks very similar to the photos that we're going to show you here in a minute, but this is an excerpt from that article. It was actually published, I'm going off memory here, I think March of 2023. It had some quotes in there from Senator Corker. The one I'm going to reference is from Ken Hayes. It says, Hayes says the improvements made with the 21st century waterfront helped put Chattanooga on the map. It's an attractive city that was able to turn around its downtown and reshape its future after suffering losses in its manufacturing foundation through the 70s and 80s. Cities and downtowns are never done, and you have to keep changing and moving ahead to keep communities fresh and dynamic. Like Disney, Miller Park being our epicenter of downtown and the aquarium being roughly 0.9 miles from the epicenter of downtown, what we're doing is tying in the missing piece of the riverfront, the Bend, from the west side to the downtown core, which again, ironically enough, is roughly 0.9 miles. We have, you can see in the lower hand picture here, we have MLK, Main Street, and 19th Street that connect the west side of our downtown. And we've always said our mission, our goal is to connect that missing riverfront to our downtown core. Here's some imagery. These are fresh, hot off the press, so to speak. When we met before, Delaware Coal and Partners had done a beautiful rendition, a big plan of what the Bend could look like. We partnered with Hill Partners, who is one of the best urban retail developers in the country, to reimagine that plan, and these are the fruits of that labor. You can see a dynamic riverfront here. This is what the community said they wanted to see. You see an indoor-outdoor music venue with retail and a new park boulevard that will tie into the west side of Wallace Plan. Callison RTK is one of the best architecture firms in the world. They do projects like this all over the country, really best in class, and very happy with the way these renderings turned out. And again, just some high notes here. I want to move through this quickly because I know we're going to have a lot of questions and answers, and I want to give CHA a chance to speak as well. 120 acres, mixed use, commercial, retail, residential, 1,500 plus units, hotels. We're thinking at least 3 hotels, possibly 4 on site. 9 acres of park space, river walk, 300 plus boat slips, a lot of density. And again, this is an overview of the plan that I just referenced with RTK and Hill Partners. This is focused on the Canal District, our entertainment district, really something that we've been missing here in Chattanooga that'll draw in a whole other class of tourists to our community via boats and things like that. And I also want to hit some of these notes here too. Some of the things that came up in the IDB, are we really going to take away from downtown and bring local tenants to a new site? And I want to reiterate, that's not our intent, right? There are a herd mentality with retailers that aren't in the community existing. You think about some of the larger retailers that we would like to see here. You get one, you get another one, they all come, but it has to be a good mix of local, regional, and nationals. And so that's what we're trying to accomplish here with this very dense urban entertainment district that you see here. Again, some new renderings that you haven't seen yet. This is the multifamily that's scheduled to break ground second quarter of next year, roughly 400 units with Woodfield. They're a best-in-class multifamily developer. They develop all over the country. They have committed to 1,200 units at the Bend, which is about a $500 million investment. There's currently 0 housing at the Bend right now, and we're planning for up to 1,500 units, apartment, condos, and townhomes. Townhomes being the smallest part of that residential mix. And we've designated 10% as affordable and 80% of AMI. Again, this is a walkable, car-optional neighborhood with access to public transportation and park space. And when you talk about affordable housing, it's really an affordable lifestyle, right? If you have a grocery store within walking distance, if your job's within walking distance, and if you have a new downtown school within close proximity, you have the ability to really create an affordable lifestyle. And that's what we're trying to do between the Bend and the west side. Here's some of the existing tenants. Again, just kind of a refresher, when we bought the site in 2018, there were 3 folks working there. Alstom had promised roughly 250 jobs when they spent the $350 million of investment in the Alstom site. Happy to report now 800 plus jobs. All of that happened throughout the pandemic with blood, sweat, and tears, and using existing infrastructure. And I want to highlight that, that's existing infrastructure. 2,000 plus jobs coming soon. And we'll get into more here in a minute on that. Here's some renderings of the existing Class A office space. I know there's been some new announcements about Class A office. We were touting that a couple years ago that Chattanooga needs some Class A office space. If you go to downtown Nashville right now, Oracle's building new headquarters. That's how employers are attracting tenants back to the workforce. They're not going in tired Class B, Class C space. They want to see new office space, they want to see outdoor amenities, they want to see walkability, they want to see, entertainment. All of those things are part of the new workforce and what they're looking for. Daycares, things like that is part of the programming in our new workforce and office space. We believe that we can offer that here at the Bend. And you can see in the foreground a fully designed, permitted 11-story office structure, and then one that we're working on now that's 20 plus stories on block 25. Here's the existing aerial photo of the existing site. As you can see, a blank canvas. We tore down roughly 600,000 square feet of older industrial. There in the foreground, about 2/3 of the bend does not have the required public infrastructure. And the existing TIF that we are applying for would cover about 50% of the expected infrastructure costs. All of that public infrastructure, roughly 5 miles of roads, park spaces, light poles, park benches, all of those things. And we are ready to break ground as soon as this year on phase one, which is the Main Street corridor. When you look here, you can see some imagery of the riverfront, roughly 3,000 linear feet. It's our last piece of riverfront. We've got to get it right. Similar to the 21st Century Riverfront Plan, again, very similar imagery to what we saw in the late 70s and 80s. This site is 2.5 times larger. That gives you a sense of the impact that we can have here if we do this correctly, right? And execute the plan that the city and the 1,200 folks that showed up for the public charrette wanted to see. And so as we move on to the next slide here, current right now in the pipeline, we were asked to put this together for the city and the county. We have $1.3 billion in total investment, vertical investment in the pipeline right now. That's under MOU, LOI, and PSA. That's not, we think it's going to happen. It's currently planned, it's in design, it's entitled, it's going through the process, various stages of negotiations. All dependent upon this TIF and the public infrastructure coming in. And so when I say we're ready to go, if we break ground this year, you can see some of this stuff coming online as early as second quarter next year. That includes urban grocery stores, multifamily units, marina, resort-style waterfront hotel, headquarters pads, as I mentioned on the office side, 4,000 to 6,000 square foot or 4,000 to 6,000 seat amphitheater. And these are partnerships with nationally recognized developers. Again, just really, really anxious to get this approved so we can get started. So years in the making, we've been at this for 5 years now, right? We've spent millions of dollars on design, planning efforts, collaborations with the city and the county. We're starting to see the effects of that in our city. You know, all ties right together. I know you guys have seen plans now to raise the density in downtown. Again, I think some of these thoughts that we were having 5 years ago are now becoming reality elsewhere in the city as well, which is what we want to see, right? Everybody wins together. I won't go into all these bullet points here, but this is a legacy project for Chattanooga, designed by Chattanoogans for Chattanoogans. And which leads me into my next slide here. We, as in the collective us, City Council, developers, City of Chattanooga, in the West Side of All's plan, have the opportunity to change Chattanoogans' lives for the better and leave a lasting impression on tourists and employers that will visit our great city. This is our last piece of riverfront downtown, is our legacy for the future generations. The Bend Plan is the culmination of years of collaborations by Chattanoogans for Chattanoogans. It's up to us to figure.
Is Naveed Minhas. For those of you who have not met me, I am Director of Development at Chattanooga Housing Authority. You heard Jimmy, and now I will walk from his bend on to west side, just crossing the Riverside Drive and go into the west side study area. The west side, as you can see, is about 150 acres, 15 acres, and it is bounded by, on the north, ML King, south on Main Street, Highway 27, and Riverside Drive. And this is our focus of our development. And we already have some CHA-owned properties there. We also have city-owned land, and we have other developers who have built other rental properties in this footprint. And then there are some other privately owned sites as well. We have one big site there, which we call as College Hill. College Hill is our oldest site, which was built as a public housing in 1940. This particular site has years of, I call it disrepair, and just because of the age and about the topography of that land, the viability of this particular site to be continued as public housing or even repair it is not feasible to the best of our knowledge, and we have been talking to HUD also. These places, the units lack a lot of amenities. They don't have affordable or the ADA requirements met over here. They have the infrastructure is basically deteriorating, like plumbing, sanitary, and like that. That is why College Hill was selected, which currently has 497 units. The other property we have, we call it the Gateway Tower. This is a 12-story building, and it has 132 units. This particular building has a deficiency, I might say. As an engineer, I will define this as saying that there are to 47 units very soon will be not habitable. So we have included this as part of our plan to demolish this and build a new structure. About Choice Neighborhood. Choice Neighborhood is one we are planning right now. It has two phases to it. One is planning and one is implementation. We are done with the planning, but not with the Choice Neighborhood Grant, but we did that on our own, and now we are applying for implementation grant. And that application will be, well, I mean, the other thing about this is that this has been appropriated by the Congress since 2010, and therefore it is considered to be rather a stable way of getting the money to build units like that. The Choice Neighborhood Implementation Grant, basically we are looking for 50 million grant from the HUD force, and the Choice Grant is also leveraged with TIF, which is very crucial to realize one West Side plan. These are interconnected in many ways because when we build our sites and housing there on the west side, we will have to go for low-income tax housing credits. And if we have the TIF and we have the Choice Neighborhood Grant, we are relatively assured that the QAP developed by Tennessee Housing Development Agency, THDA, that we will be very favorably looked at. And therefore, if this is a chain in the link, and any one of these, they don't come through, unfortunately, we could be back to ground zero. Choice Neighborhood implementation has some specific requirements. They have 1-and-1 replacement. This is, we and the city had the same vision when we started this plan, that we were going to go with one-and-one replacement. We currently have 629 low-income housing units, and we are committed to build those 629 units on this site. Now, that was our plan, that was the city plan, and it's also required by the Choice Neighborhood Grant. So it's not only us talking here, it is the Choice Neighborhood requirement, which Betsy will have to sign some documents and say that she is going to implement this plan. Then the other significant part of it, again, we, as a HUD policy, we have a right of return, and not only HUD has that requirement, but this implementation Choice Neighborhood Grant also requires that we give the right of return to all the residents who are currently living there. And then that also Choice Neighborhood has a requirement that we have relocation and mobility counseling for all the residents from this area when we plan to move them. I mentioned before 629 units proposed for demolition, and we will guarantee 629 replacement units on the west side. Right of return, we talked about, is very important, very critical, and we see this as a cornerstone for developing the more and better relationship with our neighbors, our residents over there, and they will be the highest level of preference when it comes to occupancy on the replacer units. As you know, we have priorities and are given to different levels of people coming in. So the individuals who are going to be affected here will be on the highest list of preferences to occupy the new units. And that preference, of course, they have the right and option to occupy a replacement unit or not. That will be their call. And the preference remains at the highest level throughout up to the time frame when the lease up of the replacement units is completed. Relocation and mobility counseling. Just this afternoon, the CHA board approved two companies, and I'll get into that a little bit. We feel that relocation and mobility counseling, not only that it is a requirement from the HUD Choice Grant, but also is a HUD requirement, and we follow and we are obligated to follow relocation and mobility counseling, and we have hired two companies, and I'll get into that very soon. One company is Westside Relocation Partner, and they are very experienced. More details can be given if you're looking for it. This afternoon is the time when we approved this, or our board approved it. They have 40 years of experience. They have worked on 16 HOPE 6 funded projects, 30 Section 18 demolition and disposition projects. They have 90 employees nationwide, and it so happens that 80% of them are people of color. And their staff speak 15 written and spoken languages. So 40 years of their success in retaining public housing residents as a long-term employees is part of their mission. They have experience in the past to seek out the employees, to train them, and then hire them into their program for the same site, and therefore there will be opportunity for our residents to even be getting employment. The other one is the management partner, which is Urban Strategies, and they also have previously worked with CNI funds, and they have over $3 billion leveraged in support services program, 45 years of experience, planning and coordination. I mean, there's a lot of pluses that they have, and we believe that they will be extremely successful in managing the strategies on the west side. And now I'm going to have Christina go through the phasing summary. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll grab that. Okay, thank you. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for letting us speak today. I'm Christina DeMarvis with Columbia Residential, the selected housing implementer for the West Side Evolves master plan. What I've been asked to speak to you today about is a little bit of our overall working draft of the phasing plan out at the west side. There's an incredible master plan that's in place, and when we get a hold of it, we kind of look at it and try to look at how do we time both the development of new units with demolition, and how do we ensure that we're able to have folks who wish to remain on site, stay on site, and ideally move directly into new units whenever possible. We're also looking at new unit counts. If you recall, the master plan has a mixed income approach, and so not every unit that is developed is going to be a replacement unit. There'll be a percentage of the units that are developed in each phase that are replacement units. And so what you're looking at here is really a listing of the phasing on the left-hand column, the blocks, which correspond with this lovely map here. I know not everybody likes the alphabets, but it helps me kind of keep a hold of what's going on here. But the letters in the blue, the new residential units in total, so what you're seeing is in phase 1, which is located on the block IJ, which we all refer to as the YFD block, which is on the further right-hand side over by Highway 27. We're right now modeling to hold 230 units in total. There are no non-residential square footage currently anticipated for that, and they'll be leasing and basic residential amenities, but nothing ground floor retail, for example. There are no residential units demolished in that phase. Of the 230 units right now, we're looking at 81 of those being replacement units, meaning they would be directly housed and preserved for the residents of College Hill. I don't want to bore you with going through every single line here, but it continues as forth. So before, every single phase here. Now, the total number is what I want to bring your attention to on the bottom line. You have 629 units in total demolished. So that is the 497 of College Hill, and that is the 132 Gateway Tower, which Naveed just described. It's 132 there. So those together, we're demolishing 629 units, and we are replacing 629 units. That goes back to that one-for-one replacement. Now this chart, which is where we start getting a little more in the weeds, is really taking a look specifically at College Hill. Okay, so this is 497 units, so I don't want anybody to get confused there. That's that overall number minus the Gateway Tower, and the reason for that is that senior-only housing can't be moved into family-only housing, and so that's got its own separate kind of look at where it goes. But right now, what I wanted to walk you through is the logic of how we approach the phasing. So again, phase 1, the first action on the site would be to demolish the existing YFD structure. I'm throwing out dates here. This is kind of, sticking something in the sand and start testing it out. It's, again, a working draft. But let's assume that demolition occurs. Again, if you're looking in the demo units column, no units are demolished because that is not currently housing. What we're looking off on the far right is, in the master plan, we had a flag that was staked based on a survey done a few years ago, wherein about 25% of the residents said that they would like to remain on site during the overall redevelopment. And so we said, well, what if that changes? And we would expect that to change. Could be 15%, could be whatever percent. That is to be done by the selected partners that Naveed just described. They would individually sit with every single household and they would be given choices. But for intents and planning purposes, what we looked at was, what if 30% of residents wish to remain on site? Okay, so we've got to have something to plan around. So if 30% of the residents, phase by phase, remained on site, where would they go? So this chart is assuming 100% occupancy. Not a single unit at College Hill is available across the site to move anybody into. So this is an assumption, it is not actual, right? But if you want to stress test something. So YFD site is demolished. First phase of new housing is I and J, again, over on the YFD site. New construction is done there, just as in the previous chart, 230 units. There's that number 81 off to the right. That's 81 replacement units. The first phase of housing demolition would not occur until the YFD site is built. So 81 units of replacement housing would be available. if you take down, and this is again, working draft, but if you were to take down blocks E2, F, and C, have a demo contractor, abatement and demo happening in a sequential way, then you would be removing a total of 248 units. Now, this is, I don't want to say worst case, but this is kind of a working model again. So if you assume 30% of those to be taken down wish to remain on site, 74 of those, that equals 74, and you can move 74 people into the 81 units available at the YFD site. So if you follow the blue arrows, you're looking up at the white rows, which are new housing, and anybody in the gray row, which is the demolished, we're tracking 30%, and where will they be able to move prior to their phase being demolished. I don't want to walk through every line, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. In total, the new residential unit count for the College Hill family units only is 1321. Again, demolished units, we've taken down 497, and we have created 497 units at the end of the day. Replacement units. And I know I spoke really fast for a girl from Alabama, so I'm going to let y'all ask questions.
All right, any questions?
Do we have any other presenters?
Are you the last presenter?
You want to keep going?
Yeah. So these are some of the resolutions that would be needed in addition to, as part of the Choice Neighborhood Grant. So as Christina mentioned, there would obviously be a need for a property transfer for the YFD building on 12th Street, as well as part of the Sheila Jennings Park to help with the Build First strategy, so there would be a portion of that. There would also need to be some allocation of CDBG and home dollars, as well as zoning approvals, and then the in-kind contributions. What we did was, in order to be responsive to what we were hearing from City Council, we went ahead and included language in the economic impact plan that basically says that no incremental revenues shall be allocated to the housing authority pursuant to the plan unless City Council and the city approves a relocation plan for residents of the Chattanooga Housing Authority. So this gives greater oversight to the council to be part of the process before any incremental TIF revenues can actually be allocated to CHA. And so as part of this, this obviously was a plan that was adopted by council about a year ago. And so the commitment of TIF funding alone represents the single largest investment from the city of Chattanooga in terms of affordable and mixed income housing. We are talking about in excess of $80 million that would be a part of this TIF if the TIF is successful in creating and preserving the 629 units of existing housing for College Hill Courts and Gateway Tower, along with 1,100 additional units of affordable and mixed income housing. And so this would be an extremely large investment in affordable housing. And in addition to that, there would be a portion of new sales tax revenue that would also be dedicated to affordable housing. And then as part of the James A. Henry site, there would also be 100 Head Start seats that would be created. In addition to the affordable housing benefits, there is also approximately $345 million that would be dedicated to the public education system. As you know, the county would like to build and to dedicate a new career and technical education center to prepare high school students for careers and companies downtown. And so as part of this TIF, there would be over $45 million if the TIF is successful in creating new projected revenue towards education. In addition to those benefits of the affordable housing and the education pieces, this public-private partnership would also create, it would dedicate 10% of the units within the Bend site, not the West Side Evolve site, as being affordable to people at 80% or less of AMI. It would also allow for DBE participation for up to 30% of contracts. Buildings would be built to energy efficiency standards. There would be dedicated park space to the city. And then there would be multimodal connectivity improvements, as well as the process of creating some sort of a business improvement district to help with the maintenance of the streets. This is the first time that the city has considered doing a pro rata portion of a TIF. So what that means is we are not proposing to give Urban Story Ventures their allotted share of money before any of the community benefits are realized. A portion of every single dollar goes into the different portions to help with the community benefits. So a portion of every dollar goes to the public infrastructure, a portion goes to the schools, a portion goes to the new fire station, a portion goes to Westside Evolves. That's of every dollar. So there is no party that is waiting in the wings to realize revenue from this TIF. This is the three-legged stool that we talked about, which is, it is a public-private partnership, which basically creates a model for us to be able to spur economic development, to spur the creation of 2,000 jobs, to make sure that we are maximizing our riverfront property, to dedicate over $80 million to Westside Evolves and affordable housing, and to dedicate $345 million to education if the TIF is successful. So the next steps would be City Council consideration of the Economic Impact Plan along with County Commission consideration of the Economic Impact Plan, and then there would be a development and financing agreement that would be considered by the Industrial Development Board. And with that, we'll take any questions.
All right, thank you, Jermaine. Chairwoman Dobbin. Yes, I have several questions because this is in District 7. And I'll just start out with an easy one. The data that was presented regarding those residents that wanted to stay, when was that data collected?
Let me defer, can I defer to Betsy?
You sure can.
Okay, Betsy.
Yeah, that data was collected via surveys back in 2020.
Okay. Now, earlier this year, and if I sound frustrated because I am, earlier this year, I specifically asked for you all to survey those residents again to see who wanted to stay. And I understand there's varying shifts. I get that people want to leave, whatever. Things happen over there. But today, September the 26th, 2023, we should have a definite number of those who want to stay. And that should be reflected in this because, as Christina gracefully stated, she says these are assumptions, and assumptions make an ass out of me, and it makes an ass out of you. And I don't appreciate this at all. This is ridiculous. I will not consider supporting any of this until I see actual numbers of those who would like to stay and how they will be phased into this project with one move. I'm just so taken aback by this foolishness and that there is $1.4 billion wrapped up into this. And not nobody from the Housing Authority has presented any of us with any numbers to show us who wants to stay. I don't have anything else to say. Thank you so much, Chairwoman Coonrod. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Burrs. I guess this is for Jermaine.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's not a doubt in my mind. I need some clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
There's not a doubt in my mind that the Bend project should happen.
Yes.
All right. There's not a doubt in my mind that the people that live in College Hill Courts and this whole area should have new and better housing.
Yes.
Right? There's not a doubt in my mind.
Sure.
What I'm having a problem with is this business about relocation and counseling and the fact that while this is happening, we're holding the Bend project hostage because we're saying that Urban Story Ventures doesn't get any money, I'm quoting you, until the community benefit is realized. So they're being held hostage until the community benefit is realized. And I'm seeing a lot of plans. I guess I'm agreeing with Chairperson Dotley that while we're trying to get the right information, they're not allowed to move forward. The other thing is, I want these people to stay downtown. I think that's where you get the mix.
Right.
And what I'm seeing is relocation, and I'm seeing a right to return, but we left out if they're in good standing. And it's the relocation, it's that looks like gentrification, which is not what any of us wanted.
Sure.
Okay, we wanted quality, affordable housing downtown, in a mix that lets the Bend go forward and start creating these jobs. And I know this, I'm hearing the Bend project held hostage until their stuff is together.
Well,
And I don't know what it means, Urban Story Ventures gets not one dime until the community benefits occur.
no, Mayor, it's
Those are your words, and so that's what I need help with.
So let me clarify. If the TIF is approved by City Council and County Commission, Urban Story Ventures is free to proceed and free to break ground and free to do whatever they need to do. That's why we included language in the economic impact plan that gives the council the ability to determine whether or not a relocation plan is approved for CHA. So that way, Urban Story Ventures can move forward if the TIF is approved. So they have the ability to move forward with that. They are not held hostage.
I have no problem approving the TIF,
Yes,
none
ma'am.
whatsoever.
Yes, ma'am.
We should move forward. The problem I have is how people, it's not clear in my mind, this plan for people moving them out of their homes into this one-for-one relocation. Where is it they're going?
So, yes.
And
so
is all this a done deal?
No, I think it's a work in progress because this is a plan that will not actually kick off for a few more years. And so there will be factors that change, including factors that have the residents will change, the engineering studies will come back, the financing scenarios will change. They have to apply for low-income housing tax credits. They have to seek CDBG and home funds. So a lot of this is in flux, but as part of the Choice Neighborhood Program, there is a consideration in that when you build new construction, there will have to be people who are temporarily housed in other places, which is why the Choice Neighborhood Program, which is HUD's signature program, calls for hiring a relocation specialist to be able to assist and provide case management services to the population of people that's affected. That's not a germane thing, that's a federal program, right? And so I do want to make that clear. Now, Betsy can speak more to where residents will go during the short term, but as I said before, the reason that we included language in the economic impact plan that allows the city council to hold back the revenues for the housing authority is you have the power to do that pending your approval of a relocation plan for the residents so that the BIN can continue and go forward.
One last comment.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't see people being moved out for the short term. I see them being moved out because we're not talking about a couple of months. And that's what I'm not able to get my arms around.
Sure.
The other thing is, have we looked at if they have to move? I understand places being torn down.
Right.
I understand having other places for them to go.
Yes, ma'am.
What I understood the places to go were out on Shallowford Road and out somewhere way out on Lee Highway. I guess what I don't want, people obviously should have the right to go wherever they want, but I don't think they should be moved out wholesale from the life they've known and loved and enjoyed, and with the Bend, will get even better with a wonderful mix of all incomes.
Sure.
And this is where I have a problem.
Sure. Well, so as I said before, as part of the Build First strategy, they have to start building and actually constructing new buildings before anybody moves.
Got that.
And as part of that process, they will also be incorporating and bringing in new residents because it will be a mixed income community at some point in the future down the road. And so as part of that process, the Choice Neighborhood Grant, it does consider the fact that yes, in the process of taking on such a major redevelopment project, there is movement that has to happen and there is relocation, and that is explained in the Choice Neighborhood Grant. And so it is part of the process. And we should, to your point, Councilwoman Burrs, and to the chair's point, Chairwoman Dotley, we do have to be honest about that because that is a component of the Choice Neighborhood Grant, which is a signature, which is the signature portion of HUD's program.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You good, Councilwoman Burns? You good?
I don't have any more questions right now.
Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, Chief,
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure I learned anything today, but I guess confirmed what I already knew. We've seen this presentation before. One thing I did notice in the slide that says right to return,
Yes.
the last time we saw that slide, I think there was a parentheses around it, and it said as long as they were in good standing. Has that gone away? Is that one thing that is now new?
Well, let me have Betsy explain.
Okay.
Sure, no, that is still there, and it was actually on one of the slides that Naveed presented. And essentially what has to happen is at the time a resident leaves and is relocated, they have to be in good standing. And when they return to a replacement unit, they have to be in good standing. There are a couple of things that statutorily we're not allowed to house in HUD housing, and that is folks who've been convicted of manufacture of methamphetamine and sex offenders who are in lifetime sex registry. So they would not be in good standing by statute. Otherwise, as I've said.
Well, they shouldn't be there currently, correct?
Right, but things change. If they could leave and then something could happen, and we do see that, but we don't expect that is going to be, admission back is going to be unreasonably withheld. We just have to tell you that because that is part of HUD's requirements.
Okay. And while you're here, I read something about West Side seeking zoning approval that would include short-term vacation rentals. Is that correct?
No.
No?
No, sir.
Okay, so there's no plan of
No,
including
sir.
that? Okay. That was probably some bad reporting by some newspaper.
Well, and so Councilman Henderson, what I would say in response to having learned something new, again, the economic impact plan does include language that gives this council the power over the TIF revenues for the Chattanooga Housing Authority.
Well,
Okay?
I meant as far as the slides that we were
Sure.
seeing. Now, and we haven't received the economic impact plan yet.
And you will, but having said that, in addition to that, you also have what CHA explained during their presentation was you also have guidance on the consultants that will be working with them to help with mobility and to help with case management services as well. And so this, again, is a public-private partnership that does have the potential to dedicate more resources to affordable housing and more resources to the West Side in a way that the city has never done in the past, and more resources to education.
Well, and that's a good segue into my next question.
Sure.
The council did adopt a West Side plan.
Yes.
Help me, and I may not have seen it. Has the school board or the county commission adopted a plan that included a new technical school?
I don't know if they've adopted a plan to include a new technical school. However, I believe that the county commission has approved the purchase of the Gateway site to be a new career and technical education center.
So I'm just curious, should we not see an adopted plan by a county body as we consider this as a package, since we have included an adopted plan?
10% is what's been committed.
Correct.
But may not necessarily be 10% of all housing. So
Right.
what I've seen now is of multifamily housing, which in these slides listed 1,500 units, including small townhomes. So can you commit to me that that is 150 units of 80% AMI housing that will be built on the west side?
Yes.
Okay, great.
But that's, I want to make sure that I'm clarifying, Madam Vice Chair. That's for the Bend.
Right, yes.
West Side
For the
Evolves
bend,
is a
that's right.
different-
I'm sorry, I
is
shouldn't
a
have
different
used west
animal.
side in that, it makes things a little confusing. Okay, so on to the west side project. I am keenly aware of the work that the Chattanooga Housing Authority has done over the course of a handful of years to try to do better by virtue of knowing better with how they revitalize the west side. And my initial read of this, you all may remember, I was highly skeptical of some of the things within the for-profit portion of this TIF, and pretty wide open support of the nonprofit portion of this TIF related to redevelopment of the west side. I've done a lot of listening since then. And in as much as I see that the Chattanooga Housing Authority is working diligently to do better within a large system that is the federal government, I encourage the Housing Authority and your partners to continue to press into what you're hearing, because you've done a tremendous amount of community engagement with the West Side community, and that's important. But where we are now, we have elected leaders that have additional input on the program and that have genuine concerns about how we do better as a city. As we've talked, I think about urban renewal of the 1950s and 60s, where as a nation, we said we want to, revitalize blighted communities. And what that did was it gutted our poor communities, and often those communities were African-American communities. And as I've sat quietly and listened to my colleagues, to other people in this community, what they share with me is that urban renewal did exactly what it was supposed to do. And we don't want that for our city again. And I appreciate the work that you all have done related to using a 30% number of people who want to stay. And I hear Chairwoman Dotley's very real frustration, and I understand where she's coming from as best I can as a white woman. But what I did make a note of is if we plan that 30% of people say, absolutely, I want to come back and I don't want to move in the midst of this, what we're also saying is that 70% of a community may potentially leave and not come back. And that is a historically Black neighborhood in downtown Chattanooga that will be changed, and one could really question, is all that change for the better, and what will we potentially lose? I mean, there's been history projects done about the West Side as part of this work. And so to truly honor that work, we've got to make sure that we as a city do this better. And I'm so grateful to be working with 4 very wise African-American leaders who are taking the charge and saying, this is a neighborhood, we've got to make sure we do it right. So I'm still listening. And the points that Councilwoman Burrs brought up, I share those concerns. And the point that Councilman Henderson brought up, that was based on the question about how the land will be rezoned was brought to the Planning Commission on, I believe, September 12th. And the West Side, and I'm quoting, West Side architect Tinker Ma had requested 3 variances within the WN zoning that were denied by the Planning Commission. And one of those things that was denied was short-term vacation rentals are not automatically allowed within the new WN zoning. It was stated that short-term vacation rentals are not compatible with the West Side Evolves plan that lays out conditions for a thriving West Side. It was stated also that the commission's intent is not to immediately convert new and much-needed housing to short-term vacation rentals. So I say that as an example of the listening that needs to happen, because while the housing authority perhaps is not saying, yeah, we're going to allow short-term vacation rentals in our units, and I will say the housing authority is implicitly saying they're not doing that. But when the architect for the housing authority brings that, it begins to cause this body to say, what's the real intent here? And so that's a tone that got set when that idea got brought and the housing authority's name was on it. So so I have a few specific questions.
Sure.
Along with that, imploring to please continue to be in the conversation and push to be better than what HUD wants you to be. Because HUD wants to change, and that's been why we've had such great conversation with the West Side community, but we need to do better than HUD wants us to. Okay, so specific questions. So much of this is hanging on the $50 million Choice Neighborhood Grant. But also within the funding stack is a critical requirement for receiving $100 million in low-income housing tax credits.
Yeah,
Every project that Chattanooga submitted this year was denied.
this is true.
And every project we submitted last year was denied.
This is also true.
And we have heard it said that we would get it.
Yeah.
These are quality projects we've been submitting. So if all of this whole plan relies on $100 million in low-income housing tax credits, Jermaine, what's the promise from THDA? Like, in writing, you're going to get it. If this, then this.
Yeah. I'll let Christina speak to that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would acknowledge that the QAP, the Qualified Allocation Plan, which is released by THDA, actually has a set-aside pool for projects that are C&I awardees. And so that is the critical path for
Okay.
The reason Chattanooga hasn't been funded is Hamilton County is low on the location scoring in the QAP. We brought that to their attention. They were very aware of it. They're actually working with us to find ways in which we can be competitive within the QAP. But currently, there's currently a C&I set aside.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that if this TIF goes through, that is leverage for the housing authority to be awarded a choice neighborhood grant, which is valued at $50 million.
And then that choice neighborhood grant
is the committed set aside.
Is a set aside already in the QAP.
So all they got to do is write the check. We don't have to.
I can't speak on behalf of THDA, and so we have to apply still. This is still a competitive process. But they have different pools, and without boring you, but they're different set-asides and qualified allocation plans. One of the unique set-asides in this state, in the state of Tennessee, is that they are supporting projects that are C&I projects across the state. And right now, they currently have a set-aside in the QAP, and we've been told it will remain a set-aside in the QAP for projects that are C&I.
So we're as close as we can be, but we don't have a guarantee. Okay. Because it was said if the low-income housing tax credits don't go through, or if any one of these things doesn't come through, we're back to ground zero, was what was stated in the presentation. Okay, next question. The movement of neighbors from one part of the neighborhood to another part of the neighborhood. We have phases, lots and lots of phases, as a large program like this would have. It looks to me like the projections would have all 629 30 AMI or below units replaced by phase 9 or in phase 9. If I'm reading that graph correctly. So how many years away realistically is phase 9? Because in the original documents about West Side, I think we had like a 20 to 30 year build out. So what are y'all thinking for phase 9?
Well, that's a great question. I think in the.
Okay.
In the detailed timing assumptions, which is looking at specifically College Hill, this is developed to achieve the CNI timeframe in which HUD is requesting that you replace the units within your boundary within 8 years.
Okay, so let me repeat back to you what I think I just learned, because this is new learning for me. So the Choice Neighborhood Grant would focus on replacing all of the 0 to 30% AMI units currently on site at College Hill.
Within 8 years.
And the tower. No? Okay, just College Hill Court. So we're looking at 497 units would be replaced completely within 8 years.
That is the goal, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there will be other buildings within the West Side footprint, but this is the primary project that we're talking about the funding stack for. Yes? Okay. The final thing that I have on my green dot list, I think that it's really smart and forward-thinking that we have the community benefits tied into this TIF. I see what you're saying, Councilwoman Burrs, about how we potentially have this freestanding economic development project that's being slowed by this, but I would put an asterisk and say it's possible we wouldn't be considering a TIF for that project were it not tied to community benefits. So I really appreciate, as a leader, seeing that dollar split into pieces and knowing that every dollar in tax increment that comes gets divvied into these buckets. And I think that's a great example of Chattanooga doing better than what we've been asked to do. Thank you all for working diligently to negotiate that. And I just implore you now to push forward with how do we ensure that the West Side remains a community, a true neighborhood, and not a whole new neighborhood. Because that's going to be something we can all be proud of. And when Jimmy talks about a legacy project, this should be a legacy for a community that's there, not a new start for a brand new neighborhood. Thank you, that's all.
Vice Chair.
Madam Chair, may I just respond briefly?
Yeah, please.
I was just going to say, thank you for those comments, Madam Vice Chair. The only thing that I was going to add is, on the zoning piece, council has complete control over the zoning.
Oh, we know.
Yes, that is a responsibility of council. The administration does not have control over that. Again, the plan was adopted by City Council last year. We're just trying to figure out a way to help you fund the plan and to make sure that we can create this bring along the house, the West Side, along with what is happening on the Bend, because we see a once in a lifetime opportunity to combine the two. And so this is why we wanted to be responsive to what we felt like we heard from the council, which is to include language in the economic impact plan itself that gives this council control over when CHA is allocated TIF revenues. So that, to Councilwoman Burrs' point, the project doesn't necessarily get held up and it can move along. Development can start to happen, jobs can be created, but then the council gets to have some say-so over when it feels like the Housing Authority has lived up to its promise.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Jermaine.
Councilwoman Noel.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, Lord, let me tell you. I want to start out by saying, I know one thing for sure. I am not going to live as long as I have. And what I am not going to do is waste my time and energy going back and forth with foolishness. And I don't understand why we have to beg and plead for simple answers, simple requests to be brought forth to us. Now, all the engagement, I heard Madam Vice Chair Hill said that all the engagement that the Chattanooga Housing Association has done. But to me, all of that engagement was just to benefit the Chattanooga Housing Authority. I've got a question. My question is, where are let me rephrase it, where are my people going to be placed?
The Housing Authority is not going to place any family. This program is all about choice. So at the time that we are counseling families, we will ask them specifically where they'd like to live, what amenities they'd like to see in their neighborhood, and we offer basically 3 options. One, which Christina set out, which could be the replacement units that are already built in the Build First strategy. Secondly,
where are those buildings that are already built?
The YFD site, which is where Head Start was on the map.
Mm-hmm.
We're projecting we'll build 230 units there, 81 of which will be reserved for College Hill residents who want to move straight into them. Apart from that, we'll offer every resident the opportunity to receive a mobile voucher, a housing choice voucher, which will enable them to move anywhere in the country, or if they want to stay in Chattanooga, they can use it here in Chattanooga, anywhere in Hamilton County, but very broad options of geography for helping them find units. As we talked about, we'll be counseling the families. If they want to move to Alabama to be with their families, then we will work with them in those housing authorities in Alabama to help them find that unit. And lastly, we have a portfolio of about 20, well, let's take away College Hill Court, say 1,900 units. We have made arrangements that the families who want to relocate to our existing units, and we have just done multi-million-dollar rehabilitation projects on units that we own.
Where are those?
They're all around the city, but I can give you some examples.
Give me some examples.
Okay,
where
sure.
in the city?
The Cromwell Hills Apartments. We have the Emerald Villages, and so that's over near.
Where is that?
Missionary Ridge. Over behind East Lake Courts. There's one in North Chattanooga on DeVell Lane, and the 4th one is, missing it right now, but I'll get to it. And then our other sites, they will go to the tippity top of the waiting list if they choose that they want to move to Cromwell. They will trump everybody else on that waiting list until we can get them relocated in those sites. So, as I say, it's about choice. We're not putting people anywhere. In this, to Councilwoman Burz's point.
I disagree with you on that. You are putting them someplace. You're taking them from a place that they are, which I think, like I'll say again, you muddy the waters when you offer the voucher. A simple question on a survey, if you wanted to have given the survey, is to say, one question. All you had to ask, if this is rebuilt, would you like to come back here? Yes, no, or maybe. Vouchers should have never been put in the equation in any shape, form, or fashion, which says to me that you already had in mind that you did not want them back, or you had it set up so that they could not come back for whatever reason, not being in compliance or not being or doing whatever it is that they do. You know what? What I'm not going to do, council family, I'm not going to beg. I'm not going to plead. I'm not going to entertain none of this foolishness that has been placed up here in front of me today, because it is a clear-cut case, and I stand on what I said the first time. It is Jim Crow sprinkled from the beginning to the end, and until you can show me that it is not there, and what you have shown me today, it is still there. There's nothing different. Nothing different at all. Jermaine said something, that a statement to the effect of what he see here he hasn't seen before. What I see here I have seen from years and years and years, and ancestors from one to another. The same thing. The same thing. Why has another survey not been done? Many of my people live there now that rely on public transportation, that they can't get from point A to point B without it. Then you take them out to way up God's nowhere, and then you leave them there with no transportation. This is garbage, is what it is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You good? Any other questions? Thank you for the presentation. Oh, go ahead. Oh, I have one more question. Oh, Chairwoman Dottie, I'm sorry, she had, Chairwoman Dottie.
Yes, okay. I just had a statement because I wanted to be clear. I was so appalled by the treachery and disrespect of the Housing Authority that I failed to mention the Bend project. And I'm gonna agree with Madam Vice Chair in that although the Bend is an amazing project and I love it, and Jimmy knows I love it, I've rode around there, fantastic. The fact of the matter is, it wouldn't have made it this far in the TIF without the West Side. And the fact that there's so much money wrapped up into this, I mean, $1.3 billion, and that we are begging for a simple survey that, you know, it's easy to canvas, is ridiculous. So I just wanted to be clear that, you know, as much as I love the Bend project, because I really do, I think it's a great project for our city, I will not support that without the West Side. And I would not support any of this if I don't get the information that I would like. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, no, ma'am, it's not I'm sorry, Ms. Regina, it's not
Vice Chairwoman here.
Well, I just wanted to add that my colleagues are wise women. And the things that I've been listening and learning are not always easy to hear, and it takes a lot to really listen and try to understand. And that's what we need to be doing more of. I'm far from perfect in this, but the frustration that you feel is valid. And I just go back to this, I implore the Housing Authority, please stretch and learn and listen, because it's going to make for a better Chattanooga in the long run.
Jermaine?
Yes, the only thing that I would say in closing is because this development on the west side evolves, I believe is scheduled to start within the next 3 to 4 years. And so again, as a part of the TIF document itself, this council has the ability to withhold and to keep and to retain those TIF increment revenues for the Housing Authority for the next 3 to 4 years until you feel like your concerns have been addressed. You also have the ability to add as a condition of the TIF that you want to ensure that there are more frequent surveys that are done to ensure that you are getting the community input that you deserve and that the residents of the West Side deserve. And so these are things that this council has the ability to do in addition to controlling the zoning. And so you do have a great deal of power and responsibility here. So from the administration's perspective, again, we appreciate all of the input that we have heard, and we appreciate that. And it is valid, and we face that head on. Our goal, once again, though, was to create a structure in which we could create funding for a plan that was adopted by the city council. And we have done that to create that plan, that funding mechanism. And so you all now have the ability to really take hold of the relocation planning for the housing authority and to hold on to the TIF revenues until you are satisfied. And so that is all we will say in closing.
I do have a couple of questions about here. Ms. Bessie, do you all have the information about the case management and relocation services that you all talked about today at your 12:30 meeting? Can you share some information on that?
Yeah, we certainly can share the proposals of those vendors. We'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
And they have significant experience working in this very environment. So happy to do that.
Appreciate it. Thank you for, I guess I'm kind of torn, like honestly, because I lived in the West Side. Like, and then as I look out and I see people that I grew up with that's still living in the West Side, you got my auntie sitting in the front, you got my mama best friend sitting, like it's these people, like I'm familiar with them. I have relationships with them. I have, from way back, little kids. And when I think about this area and when we talk about the West Side, that how it has transitioned to become a historically Black, underserved community where it originated when it was first built, where it was built for white women when their husbands went off to serve the military. And it was housing that was created for them to be able to live while Black people were still using the bathroom in outhouses. It wasn't a place for us to come, but it was a great place for other people. So once the transition happened, for Black people to start living in it, and then we just saw the analysis map, which was very upsetting to me. And when we think about in the One Chattanooga plan, when it talks about the high rate of child poverty, when we think about the zip code of the West Side, and when we think about the crime that's happening, all the shootings and killings that's happening amongst Black people, all the concentrated poverty that's happening. Now, as the slides shown of the bin, I watched each one of their faces, how their faces lit up. Like, man, I can imagine this becoming what I would want to be, where I would want to live at. Like, the one opportunity that where I could see something different. I could be a part of something great. Because what they see now, I can't imagine that it's a place where they just absolutely love and enjoy is what they can afford to be, where they can afford to be at. Because nobody wants to be living in a zone to where you going to bed every night with gunshots. You waking up with the news that people done been killed in this very same community. On every porch, everybody is selling drugs, and you may see a body that's done overdosed on opioids. In a stairwell, there's no telling what you may see. Those are the stories of the people that's sitting in these yellow t-shirts, a story that I can most for certain relate to. So I got a different perspective. I think that this community is deserving of it. I do hear my colleagues with the things that they're asking for, and I would like, Bessie, when do you think you could create a survey?
We can, excuse me, when we last did the surveys, we engaged the help of many of the residents you see here. So we can create a survey focused particularly on relocation and get that dispatched as early as next week.
And I had posted a question on Facebook about the West Side and asked, like, who would want to stay here? Who would want to continue to live here? Some said they would, and it was mostly the older people that live on the Main Street side that said, yeah, I would love to continue to stay here. And I do see in the plan, like that's part of the first round and phases, they would love to stay here. But also what I saw is that a lot of people said they didn't want to stay there. They didn't want to return. The ones that do want to return, I'm in line with my colleagues, like let's find them a place if that's where they want to be. But I can't imagine by 2013, that those same group of people would want to be returning to the west side. It would be my hope that they would be inspired to become a homeowner to where they can transition. So for me, is that, and you know, I talk to you about it all the time, like what's in the plan to, even before we start building in 24, this group of people, they may say, I want to become a homeowner. What's in place to help them transition from where they at? So by 2024, when they apartment come up, they may just change it and say, you know what? I don't need any of that. I'm finna be a homeowner. Can we prepare each one of those individuals for home ownership?
We have an active upward mobility program that folks can participate in, and then once folks get a voucher, that voucher can be used as a soft second on a mortgage for homeownership. And we encourage that. We work with CNE to prepare for homeownership, to get credit in order, and then many, many residents have become homeowners because of the program. And so, we have an active resident engagement staff with 11 staff members who work in all of our sites, and we're talking to them constantly about that opportunity, and we'll continue to do so, not just with the West Side residents, but with all of our residents.
Okay, so you said you can have it, the survey crafted up, sent to us. You can send it electronic or however you want to do. But I also would like to add, if we can put just the paperwork to say, to add the question, if you want to become a homeowner, so we can know how many people are interested, so we can start getting them in the pipeline. Do you got a pair of good, comfortable tennis shoes?
I do.
All right, so next week, when you get the survey ready, pick a Thursday. I'm free on Thursdays.
Okay, we'll equip you with a tablet like we did all of our residents. Miss Sharon was out
However
there.
you want to do it.
We'll do
But
it.
me and you, we gonna go walk the west side, so we can make sure that we get the surveys that we're asking for, because I'm tired of hearing, hey, when we gonna get it? I'm gonna help you go get it.
Let's do it.
Because it's a community that we all care about. Hey, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing some people out there that I really know, and I know that they're excited about what's happening, so we can decide what's gonna be for the best interest of the project at that time.
That's great.
Thank you again, appreciate it. Jermaine?
I don't have anything else.
All right, anything else you got? All right, well, I think that's it, then I guess we'll adjourn till
Yeah, turn to 6.
6 o'clock.